Hello and welcome to the Decrypting Crypto podcast. It's October 23rd, 2025, and this is Off-Chain, your weekly recap of the biggest stories in the crypto space. I'm Matthew House-Barbie, and as always, I'm here with my beloved co-host, Austin Knight. How are you doing, Austin?
Spooky season, man.
know.
We can't break past that 109, 110K ceiling.
It's a real ceiling right now. I think that it's, we've probably had in the past few days, past week or so since, the huge liquidation cascade on the 10th, we've been trying to retest some of these like resistance levels about 6 or 7 times now, I think. And there's just no conviction to push through. And I think there's some positives there. The fact that, first of all, we're holding a really nice floor on BTC of like, we're not dipping below that 105, 106 kind of support level. And there's loads of support below it. But it just kind of feels like, to me, there's too many curveballs imminent for people to have like this conviction to be like, all right, I'm buying the rally, because tomorrow, in particular tomorrow on Friday, there's so many opportunities to get rugged by either the Fed or by Trump or by another thing that could happen. So yeah, it's been a bumpy ride. And speaking of bumpy rides, we're going to review some of your end of year predictions, Austin, alongside mine.
For some reason, are you foreshadowing there with the bumpy ride thing? Am I the only one that was on a bumpy ride this year?
we shall see. Well, just for everyone listening, what we're going to do in this episode is, we've had so much commentary that we've been doing about the markets, macro, everything else, and we wanted to take a chance to zoom out. In January of this year, we did our yearly predictions, and we went through a few different areas, which we'll come into. We picked, what do we think the highest price of BTC will be in 2025? What's ETH's peak in 2025? How many rate cuts will the Fed make? How many bips? Talk about like which areas of crypto will get the most hype. And like we picked one equity and one crypto asset to see who's going to perform the strongest from today versus December 31st. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a check-in on how those predictions are tracking. And then I think we'll just have a bit of a discussion around, compared to where we were at in January, which feels like a lifetime ago, with all the things that have happened. What have we changed our opinion on? What do we feel like, okay, we still have strong conviction in? And what's our outlook for, I was about to say like the last few months of the year, but it's like 2 months left. This is, it's crazy. And usually the two most exciting months, at least in bull markets. Now, will we see that? I'm not sure. But before we like go straight in, I think the one call out that I will have on the kind of current situations of the markets, you mentioned this piece around, not being able to push through and have kind of have BTC break out. If we can quickly show the chart here, because I think it's important that everyone's keeping a track of BTC. Where are we? BTC, here we go. Yeah, I think this is really important. BTC is the most important chart that everyone should be looking at. I don't think you should be looking at like, how are alts performing? How are we doing like across like ETH, etc. Like BTC is the asset that needs to lead this rally for things to sustain. And that is honestly the most important thing right now. If we have a really strong showing from BTC, you will likely get what everyone loves, the alt kind of rally and everything that comes after it, which usually signals the end of the cycle. So don't wish it too early. But if we look at the 4 hourly on this, obviously this is that monstrous candle or wick all the way down to near the 100K mark that we had on the 10th. And we kind of had that little bounce where everyone got a little bit excited. We hit about 115K, and then it was just like, okay, like we're tapping out here. We had kind of like a little retest here, failed and rejected. We consolidated for a period, dropped back down, and dropped back down again. And then it was like, okay, let's go and start trying to really do something. And it did look like on Monday that after a period of what you would look at as like healthy consolidation, right? We were going to start rallying back up. We went back up to this like 111K mark. Sorry, this was Monday. And and then we kind of like failed that and had this really nice big candle all the way up to, I think like it peaked at, about 13 and a half. And then it was just like the biggest rejection ever. And now we're kind of consolidating back in and around this range. My take here is there's a lot of eyes on Friday. And the reason why I think Friday is important is, I don't know if you saw, Austin, that Xi and Trump are now going to be meeting in Malaysia tomorrow, or at least they're planning to. And we have our delayed CPI data that's coming out, pretty much the only inflation data. I don't know how much attention or like sway that's going to have. Mainly because I don't think it's going to influence the Fed's decision next week to cut rates. I think they're cutting rates no matter what. This is like even more of a lock-in than the past one. But maybe if we have a very hot CPI report, it would not be good. But I think if we have a really good CPI report, but we don't have progress on the US-China situation, I don't see CPI carrying us through that. It feels like a lot's resting on this Trump-Xi situation right now, right?
Yeah, it definitely does. So it's going to be, it's, I think as we go through these predictions and the results that we've got, there are going to be a few that are fairly definitive at this point, but there's also a few that kind of could change pretty dramatically by the end of the year. Even though we only have a couple months left, there's still a lot up in the air with a few of these points. So should we start to get into it?
Let's do it. Let's jump in. All right. Why don't we alternate through this? You want to take the first one?
Yeah, so the first prediction that we were looking at was, it's always a fun one, because you can kind of win either way. You can will yourself into winning, if you will, and that is what will be the highest price that Bitcoin hits in 2025. Matt's prediction was 155K. My prediction was an entirely optimistic 200K. The result, our peak so far has been 126K as of October 6th. So, still a relatively recent peak, but
I don't know what I feel more confident about, 155K or 200K, because if I had to bet, I still feel more confident in my prediction of 155K. Yeah. But then if I think about if we do hit 155K and we rally up to there, man, that's going to be an unstoppable force if we break all the way up to that point.
I agree. It probably won't happen by the end of the year. Like, I could see there being a serious rally in the final couple months of the year that could either get us to 255K or put us on track to 155K. At this point, to me, it's feeling like 200K is not going to happen in 2025. If we were to achieve that by 155 by the end of the year, then I think all bets are off at that point for 2026. But the thing is that, my prediction was kind of like an intentionally overly optimistic prediction because I was expecting a lot of optimistic factors to fall into place. Like this was not really riding on rate cuts so much as it was around a changing regulatory regime that was, bringing a lot of optimism to the table at the time when we were making these predictions because, Trump, one of the major factors that Trump got elected on was basically support from not just the tech industry, but really from a lot of, crypto bulls. So, the changing regulatory regime, expecting, relatively solid economic and GDP growth, relatively moderate / under control inflation in the context of the last few years, relatively low unemployment, all of those factors coming together could have created what I felt might have been a steady rally over the year that then would get juiced at the end of the year by a couple rate cuts under, the pressure of the Trump administration to kind of let's throw some gas on the fire, especially as we go into the midterms. So
start Q2, it's that April period. I mean, if I had to sum up, the biggest curveball of this year was tariffs. And that really pushed things a little crazy. And I think that's why my prediction of 155 on BTC, I was unsure really how hard we would rally into the end of this year, to be honest. However, if we go to the next prediction, which is what do we think the highest price of ETH will be in 2025? You went in here with 6K, which, we're currently, our peak so far is just under 5K. So 4,946, which is in August. I went in with 7K. So I was a lot more optimistic on the ETH side. We started to see those digital asset treasuries. And I wondered if we were going to, especially with the ETH ETF inflows having a slightly delayed effect. That was a lot of my thesis here. I'm unsure. I wouldn't write off 7K. I think if it happens, if we hit 7K ETH, I think it's Q1 next year. But things have to fall into place. But I think your prediction of 6K is, if all things continue and we do see a good couple of months at the end of the year. Not even anything as crazy as what happened in the last 2 months of last year. We could see a really strong showing potentially. I think the counter argument is the DAT trade is kind of simmered down quite a bit. So there's less of that piece, but I still think, the institutional bid has been pretty aggressive.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, this felt like a contradictory prediction to me that was mostly just based on gut, I would say, because I went so high with Bitcoin and, relatively moderate with ETH, just based off of the fact that I was seeing increasing lags and gaps in performance between the two and the growth,
eternal pain of ETH holding.
Yeah. And so the growth that I was expecting was more related, I think kind of similar to the way that you were thinking about it, Matt, less related to macro factors and more related to specific developments that would happen in ETH, especially the ETH ETFs, just the inflows that we would get from institutional investment there. ETH has started to perform. So I think it's possible that, especially if Bitcoin has a rally to 155K by the end of the year, I think that 6-7K is totally possible.
100%, completely agree. All right, so ETH BTC, we're not crazy far from this. I feel like at least one of us should be on track there.
Yeah,
we'll say we're probably year to date 50-50 right now, I think. So why don't we go into the next one? We shift away a little bit from just pure crypto price prediction.
So yeah, the next one was just how many rate cuts do we expect the Fed to make in 2025, and by how many basis points will they cut in total? And both of us actually independently came in at the same conclusion, which was 2 cuts, 50 basis points total. Currently, we're at 1 cut, 25 basis points total, but most likely we're going to be on the target with this one, I think, once we get the next Fed decision.
I have a different perspective.
Yeah.
So
You think it's going to go higher?
yeah, I think it's gonna be 3 cuts. And I think the minimum is going to be 75 bips, but
Mm-hmm.
it would not surprise me if we end the year with a final 50 bips basis cut. I just think if we see inflation slow down, but more importantly, if we really start to see more pain in the job market, I'm sure this government lockdown is going on much longer than anyone expected. I think it's now the second longest in history. But
Yeah.
the crazier part of that, I think, is there doesn't seem to be any real like rush to get it resolved, unlike the last few.
Yeah.
So this, I think, is where we could start to see like less data coming in still, and looking at the data that we have available, it's all coming from like the private sector, and it's not been looking good so far. So if that's all the Fed has to go on, I saw Waller speaking yesterday on Bloomberg, and he was, I mean, he has always been much more dovish, but he pushed for a 25 bips cut last time. And I think, like, you know, a lot of the rationale here around the jobs market in particular is leaning towards there. But I would be very surprised if we don't end the year now with 3 cuts, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Anything can happen though, as we know. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point about the shutdown.
All right. Fourth question. Which area of crypto will get the most hype and attention slash like price action? So you went with the AI agent side of things. I mean, AI has been just like the wider theme in the in certainly in the markets for sure. Mine, I also thought AI agents in crypto, but also the um, alternate L1s like Sui and Hyperliquid. I think like while I called Hyperliquid, um, I didn't think that like the perps Dex narrative was going to be quite as big as it was. I think like the AI agents piece, I don't think it's really come to fruition in crypto yet.
Yeah.
I don't think we're really seeing as much interest. I think arguably there was way more last year around this. Perps probably one of the hottest sectors in crypto, but to be completely honest, I think that still, even though like it was talked a lot more near the start of the year, I think stablecoins has to be called the number one narrative this year. Everything has been
Mm-hmm.
stablecoins. And sure, we've had like, you know, the Circle IPO, which already feels like years ago, and it was only really months ago. And every bank, Walmart, Amazon, etc., planning all of their own stablecoins. I think we got to call that as being the one. So I don't think we quite nailed that one, to be completely honest.
Yeah. I do think that maybe the AI agent's prediction was just a little early, if
Yeah.
anything. I think that, you know, there is the potential in high frequency trading, of course, automated high frequency trading through AI agents. But more interestingly, there is the stablecoin narrative. And as we
Which
talked
is
about a couple
intrinsically
episodes
linked.
ago, exactly. Like this potential unlock of pairing AI agents with stablecoin rails, basically like stablecoins as their financial rails. I think there's something there. It's just that the tech isn't quite there yet. It's going to take a little bit longer than we might have thought. I mean, if you think about, even if you think about the beginning of the year, just like the perceived pace of innovation with AI in general, I think it's moderated quite a bit. Like
Mm.
maybe it's been cut in half, if not even worse from my perspective. Like and I don't know if that's a maturing or if it's just a realization that people are having as they interact with these tools more and more. Obviously, they're extremely capable and they're becoming more and more capable by the day. But, you know, the longer that you interact with them, the quicker you kind of realize where those invisible walls are, where they start to break down.
Yeah.
And getting to a point where an AI agent can do your trading for you or your shopping for you, I don't think we're that far off, but I don't think that that's a 2025 use case like it may have seemed it could have been at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think we will almost certainly in the next 24 months have that as being a major part and
Yeah.
see real applications there. All right. The next one, the one that I pretty much always get wrong. Will inflation in the US remain sticky, or will we get back to 2% in 2025? I remember last year in our predictions, you were much more bearish than I was on inflation. And in this year's predictions, you were also more bearish than me. You said it would remain sticky at 2.5%. I said that we will get down to 2% um, by the end of Q3, but potentially pick back up in Q4. We're currently, currently with an asterisk here because we lack some of the CPI data, so this will change tomorrow. This is August's most recent read, is 2.9%. So I think you could be very close here with your
Hmm.
2.5%. I mean, I am unless something unbelievable happens, we're not getting down to 2% in 2025. I think 2027 seems optimistic at this point.
So
But yeah,
my thought here was actually that being sticky at 2.5% was inflation going down, with the one X factor being tariffs. And the
yeah,
reason that I say that is because I I believe that inflation was consistently underreported during the Biden administration, and that the like real on the ground experienced inflation that we would be that dealing with was actually, you know, much higher, and thus on paper would be stickier, because like the you know, the time that it would take to actually bring it down to an actual 2.5% would be a little longer, and then we'd probably f with that a little bit through tariffs. um
yeah.
yeah,
That
it looks like you know, we're probably gonna stick in that zone for a little while here.
I completely agree. And I mean, I called this out in our predictions, but at the start of this year, I did not believe that Trump would follow through on his tariffs, and that I think was
Yeah.
the complete curveball. you know, we'll come on to that shortly, but that really threw me off for sure.
Hmm.
So okay, where were we at? Inflation. All right, you take the next one. We've got like three really left here.
Yeah, so our next prediction was, what will the S&P 500 index peak at in 2025? And Matt, you came in at 6,700. I came in at 7,000. The result
Mm.
as of October 9th is that we peaked at 6,802. So we almost split that one down the middle. You edged me out there.
Oh,
If
I don't know.
you know, if an
I think you're gonna take that. I know we've had a pullback, but I cannot see this train stopping. We've
Mhm.
got a brief pause at the station while we figure out this US trade stuff with China and everything there. But equities have definitely outperformed from where I thought they would. And I mean, 6,700 was a bullish view, really, of like S&P from where it was. So yeah, 7,000, I think you might nail that.
Yeah, it's possible. All right, bring on the pain with these next couple ones.
All right, this is where we took one crypto asset, and then afterwards we did one publicly listed equity. So we said, okay, you can't pick BTC, ETH, or Sol, and we said like which you think's going to perform basically really strong from the day we did the predictions, which was just at the start of January, to the price on the 31st of December. So lots can happen, right? Till now. Austin, you went with Doge, and at the time, that was 42 cents at just over a $61 billion market cap. I went with Hype at 23.50, which was a $23.5 billion FDV. Doge has not done you proud here, Austin. And I don't think the events of October 10th have helped. So it's now down 55%, 19 cent. Hope you didn't go in with leverage on that one. And I've kind of done the reverse here. So Hype has performed really well. We're up 65% on that trade, $38.75. So that was a good one. And I think, I outside of BTC and ETH, Hype for me was kind of coming into this year the asset to watch and the DEX to watch. And man, that has definitely been the case. And I think Q4, this thing rips even more. So yeah, very strong, very strong. Who knows with Doge, in all honesty? Because, well, look at last year, right?
Mhm.
Like Doge was probably lower than where it is now, kind of coming into like October time. And then it absolutely ripped. I think did it hit an all-time high in November, December time? So it was just like, the thing with something like Doge is it can just move like crazy when you move into like an altcoin. It's one of the first things. That and XRP just ripped in at the end of the year. So all right, I'm taking that one for now, though.
I mean, that was mostly I was making a meme. Yeah, that's an L. I was making a meme bet there for the most part. But look, man, this is why I don't play in the casino, and you do. Okay, so our next prediction was actually the same thing about picking an asset that we think is going to perform strongly by end of year. But this time it was about a publicly listed stock. And so, Matt, you picked D-Wave Quantum Inc., which was at $5.79 and $1.5 billion market cap. And then I picked Sentinel One, which was at $22.21 and a $7.2 billion market cap. Once again, I am off on this one. Sentinel One is down by 20%. $17, $18, $5.8 billion market cap. On the flip side, you have made like the trade of the of the podcast, I think.
Do you want to know something crazy? This thing. So actually, you go ahead, and then I'll tell you something after.
Yeah, I want to hear about this because somehow you were really onto something here. 372% gain. D-Wave Quantum Inc. is now at $27.30, a $9.2 billion market cap. That's awesome.
So that was based on yesterday's close price. It is up 20% today.
Wow.
So it is now up to $32.90, which is, I don't even know what that will be as a as a multiple, but it'll be over like it'll probably be like 400-ish, 400 and something percent up. So two important things here. So one, the reason why it's up massively today is because Trump has announced that the US government is going to be taking stakes, small stakes in quantum companies. I think 4 quantum companies, with D-Wave being one of them, in exchange for some federal funding. So that is just getting like this monster rally. The second and most important thing is, while I did actually do the hype trade, I did not buy this equity. I did. I
Oh no.
So I didn't buy this, but I sent this to one of my friends, and I said, "Hey, man, I think this equity is going to absolutely rip this year. You should like take some call options on it, or go just like buy on some of this." I'm not personally buying because I've just allocated all of my equity portion right now, and this is like a bit of a speculative bet. But I think this is going to either be like a doesn't do much or it absolutely rips. So despite my paper profit of 400%, I've not ripped. But this is just like what I would put in almost like the meme category of equities, because while there's some like real fundamental tech behind this, my thesis coming into this and what I was discussing at the time was this is kind of like the AI beta trade, where AI was going to be front and center, and then it was going to be what's next. And all we needed was 1 or 2 little breakthroughs in quantum. So we had I think it was HSBC, had their little, predicted the bond prices to like an additional level of accuracy using quantum for the first ever time. All of these stocks just ripped because they're so low market cap anyway. And everyone is like, oh, these are the beneficiaries of AI, right? And sure, maybe they are, but not really today. And they are just catching a continuous bid. This company, I was doing a little analysis, and its valuation is roughly like EV to sales is like a 400x multiple right now.
Wow.
It's just like
Unbelievable.
I think it did something like 9 million in revenue last year, and is obviously massive loss making. Right? It's just like, and it's the same with all of the quantum computing stocks, that people want a piece of this. And I think narrative in bull markets definitely pays off. But my buddy that bought this did really well, and had a nice holiday this year thanks to me. So good job him.
Well,
Good
I
job
can
him.
tell you, when we do our predictions in January, I am buying the crypto asset and equity that you select, and
I'll
I'm
make sure to
selling
have a big
whatever I
drawdown.
select.
We'll go long and short.
I'm actually, you know what, Matt? Yeah, I'm gonna do my absolute best to pick a crypto asset and an equity, and then I'm gonna short both of them.
The inverse Austin index. I like this.
Yeah.
Well, we had one last little kind of thing that's a little bit more qualitative, and I would say this is what I got the most wrong. So we were like, okay, what's like your contrarian prediction of 2025? My contrarian prediction that we kind of picked 2 options, and then we picked one to go with, and I went with my second one, I remember. And I said that Trump will backtrack on his narrative around tariffs, deliver an extremely limited, watered down version, or potentially none at all in 2025. That I got completely wrong. I really didn't think he was going to follow through, but he certainly did that. And then I think that your piece was around Keir Starmer facing Justin Trudeau's fate in 2025, which I would actually argue also pretty wrong. I don't think he's been like raring popularity, but he managed to kind of get on Trump's, well, I don't want to say good side. I'm going to say he avoided his bad side.
Yeah.
And he's still He's still here. I think mainly because there is literally no viable opposition in the UK right now.
Yeah. Well,
So
he's definitely moderated and pulled back on
yeah,
a lot of things. Um, I was basing this actually not on Trump. I was
oh
basing this on domestic pressure, which would boil over to international pressure. Um,
yeah.
and I do think that he's under quite a lot of pressure. I think
Oh, I think you just broke up, Austin. I'm sure you're saying something incredibly insightful, though. I got you back
yeah,
now.
well, I think that Keir Starmer was coming in and just taking me off of the internet for a minute there.
Yeah, it's my UK filter. You just got censored
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah, but so I do think that he's under a lot of pressure, but he definitely
Yeah.
hasn't gone the way of Justin Trudeau this year. I mean, he's
He's behind in the
I
polls
think a
to
reason
Farage.
you said he's behind in the polls.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that doesn't totally surprise me. I was expecting something even more dramatic than that. Like I thought this would be potentially a short-lived government, mostly, as I said, due to mounting domestic pressure that would like boil over to international pressure. I think that this giant protest that you all have had and everything like that there have been some interesting cultural manifestations in the UK.
Mhm.
At the same time, I'm, just from across the pond, which I get very different information than you do, which is, I think, probably going to be less accurate, and more
Yeah,
filtered through an American lens. Even so, which, here the narrative is very much this guy is like a socialist tyrant that is trying to put people in jail for bad tweets. Even so, I think that narrative has softened on him a lot,
I agree.
and I get the impression that your government has pulled back a lot on what was a very sort of unpopular approach to freedom of speech. I guess would be the easiest
Yeah,
way to put it.
I would say that narrative has shifted quite a lot. The socialist side, like you know, uh, the US is allergic to that word, right? So I
Yeah.
think like that comes up. I mean, look at the New York mayoral race right now. And it's like the home of capitalism. You have like socialists running, and everyone's like like right. But like socialism as a what in Europe, it's not something that scares people really at all. And so I think that's less of an issue now. Here's the thing: there is still so much that can blow up in the UK. We've got in November the UK budget, which is like the most the thing that I find like both ridiculous and that I still kind of quite like about the UK is just all of these like ridiculous performances that we have around like ceremonial things that we do in government.
Mhm.
And so I don't even know why this happens, but whenever any time that the government produces its budget, which it has to do, it's like annual budget um, for it's supposed to be at the end of autumn. So we're really stretching the definition of autumn here in the UK in November. But the Chancellor of the Exchequer, which is effectively our version of the Treasury Secretary, Rachel Reeves, comes out with this like red kind of briefcase that apparently contains the budget that is all written inside it. Comes outside of like the number 10 Downing Street, which is our shitty White House, and then they like announce to the press, and there's this like really random like law where or rule, and I guess it is a law where this is like one of the only times where members of parliament or maybe just the Chancellor of the Exchequer is allowed to drink alcohol during this period. So it's like, and, right. So like and no chancellor has actually done this for several years. But back in the 90s, I think was like the last chancellor to do it, and I cannot remember his name, Ken. Oh God! But he just came out with like a glass of whiskey with the budget, and it's just like
Nice.
we just have still these archaic pieces that happen in the UK that I just love. I would just love. I just love how that happens. It's so bizarre. So
well,
we'll see.
Matt, don't forget we are descendants of you all, so we have our stupid displays as well. It's that red briefcase reminds me so much of this huge display that our AG and a bunch of Congress people put on with the Jeffrey Epstein files. They walk out of our White House holding these binders that they don't open, but I guarantee that if you were to open them, there would just be a big "fuck you" written on every single one of those pages, because we've gotten absolutely nothing from that. So look, the ceremonialism and the bullshit and the bread and circus will continue.
Absolutely. And on that bombshell, I think we'll wrap things up. We're gonna skip next week. I got some travel, but we'll pick things back up the following week, and hopefully tomorrow we get good news on US China, CPI, and by the time we're doing our next stream, we've got party hats on and we're celebrating BTC new all-time highs. That's what I'm manifesting. That's what I'm going to manifest, and I'm going to stick with it. All right, Austin, it's been a pleasure. I'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you, Matt.